do your standard sort of
yards.
self-intro sort of thing. You're like, my name's Brandon Couch. And
hi guys, my name is Brandon Couch and this is vlog number 271.
It's your boy. I'm built like a teddy bear, like, look at me. At the moment, I'm taking a gap year from university. I just finished my Bachelor of English and Writing at Otago University last year, and I'm actually down at the moment to graduate since I missed the December ceremony. So yeah, during that I was just studying, sort of, and yeah, working on my personal writing, and now I'm just working nightfall at a supermarket to save money to go to Europe and meet with my best friend of 4 years, who I've only ever known online, which, you know, this typical stigma you might associate for some people, but, you know, it's exciting. So it's not the most glamorous job that I've got at the moment, but after I get back from Europe, I'm coming back to do my masters, write about video games, and then go out into the real world and find out how terrifying everything is.
Hobbies, passions, and what do they mean to you, / how do they, like, you know, shape who you are in a way, that kind of thing.
Well, we've already discussed briefly, luckily, the writing, which, you know, if we get down that track, it'll be 2 hours later and I'll still be going, so we'll spare everyone that. They've heard it all before. The one I was recently discussing was about barbershop, which is a passion of mine that I picked up in, I think, year 10 of high school. When I was tone deaf and not a functional singer, I just decided for the hell of it I'd go join up with the school barbershop group, or at least audition. I quickly found out that I had a lot of improving to do in that regard, but luckily the guy who was behind the show all the time, David Brooks, great guy, he really put me on the right track, got me learning properly. Spent the rest of my time at high school doing that, going to regional and national competitions, performing in front of a big crowd of other barbershoppers, which was some of the best memories of my life for certain, were being up on those stages. And while I was at uni, I didn't really find any groups that I could perform with, but I recently joined back up with the Wellington Regional and National Representing Group Vocal Effects, who's based out of Tawa in Wellington, and I idolise those guys quite a bit because a couple of my mates are in it, and I saw some of their performances just like blown away, and I immediately realised that when I was back up in Wellington I wanted to get back into it. Basically the things I'm typically known for is either the book guy, the beer guy, the beard guy, or just amongst the queer community I'm that other asexual person amongst a whole bevy of the queer folk that I've gotten to know over the past few years. I think for the sheer fact that A, I didn't know asexuality existed when I was still at home, and B, most other people don't, is like the fact that I didn't identify that way meant that my queer identity didn't really have much to do with me growing up. It wasn't one of those sort of like, whoa, what's wrong with me, I'm different, because I didn't really notice it. It was more of a like, just the whole thing where eventually I found out, oh, there's a word for that, cool. Once I did realise what asexuality was and realised that I identify within that spectrum, I think my parents didn't really have any, not really any particular opinions on it, to be honest. I was lucky I didn't get the, but what if we want grandchildren shit. It was like, it's been good. I've been happy that I haven't had anything particular weirdness to deal with in terms of sexuality with my family, so phrasing it that seems a little weird. Anyway, troubles from my family regarding my sexuality. There we go. Jesus Christ, Freud is crawling out of his grave slowly. But yeah, when I came down to university, obviously I met a lot, like a massive range of very diverse people, including getting involved in the queer community. Initially just as, you know, your stereotypical straight ally guy, I was just like, yeah, I'm here, I'm not technically queer as far as I'm aware, but, you know, I don't know how I managed to rhyme that.
Yeah.
So I just sort of joined in. I'm pretty sure it was mainly through you, to be honest. You were one of the main people, the main points of call to get to know other people in the queer community, so... And then I remember specifically, it was during a break, I think it was the mid-year break or something, or a mid-semester break, during, I think it was it second year? It was second year, it must have been, yeah. I had barged into your flat, as I had a habit of doing that year. I ended up having a good old deep and meaningful, just while we were sort of sitting around. And I think the topic came onto my previous long-distance relationship, with my friend over in France, who of course I'm still very good friends with. She's the one I'm going to be living with. So we were sort of having a chat with like how that all played out, because the relationship basically, I'm getting quite deep in this, but basically the relationship ended because she realised she was asexual and didn't want to have like a conflict of interest, so to speak, I guess, of like me, as far as I knew, being allo. And then I was sort of talking about how I realised that sex as a concept wasn't that big of a deal for me in terms of relationships, and then Bridget was just like, well, you know, you might be demisexual. I'm like, what does that mean? Oh, you know, only have like any form of sexual drive towards someone that you've got a very close bond with. And I was like, huh, I didn't know that was a thing. It's also very, very accurate. And I like mulled it over for a few days, because I didn't want to just like dive into the deep end like, oh, well, now I must be. But after a while I was like, you know what, this is probably the best way to put it. And yeah, it's been a constantly changing experience, obviously. Like, I feel like half the time it feels like I'm still coming out in that regard, because the way I understand my own self-definition has changed quite a bit. For one thing, I've just started using ace rather than demi, because for one thing it's quicker to explain and in some degree more accurate. Like, I think it's just I'm somewhere in this gigantic grey area of what asexuality is, and I think I'm comfortable with just having a general term for it. But yeah, that was basically it. I just had a deep and meaningful with Brighid, and then after a while started chatting with other people about it, and then suddenly realised, yeah, might as well roll with it. This is what it is. So yeah.
That's cool. How does coming out work for you? Like, do you come out often? Do you only come out to people where you think it's relevant? Like, is it important to you or not that important to you?
I find myself doing it quite often if something comes up to prompt it. Like, if a topic of discussion is relevant to sexuality or whatever, I can be like, me, token ace, I've got an opinion about this. Yeah, like, if it's coming up in a civilized discussion, I'm very happy to do it. If it's coming up in an uncivilized discussion, I'm not happy to do it, but I'm just sitting there like, this is a personal challenge now. You're talking shit about me, so I'm gonna argue my point. So, like I said, I'm from a position of privilege in the sense that I can do that without being in danger, but I do find that I come out quite regularly, and I don't really have any issues doing so either. I think I feel quite safe with it, and I don't really get in a habit of cutting off people because of disputes over that, which, you know, I can understand why people do it, but I just find myself willing to just grin and bear it in a lot of situations, which again means I'm a lucky person because I don't face the worst of it.
What do you think, because I know there's a lot of like, even within the queer community, from what I've seen, there's kind of this like stigma about being particularly like ace or demi, because it's seen as kind of like trying to, I don't know, like a plea for attention or like that kind of thing. How do you respond to that?
There's a lot of like very similar things that people believe about asexuality, which can be true. I will preface this by saying that it can be true, but it's not universally true. The big one is assuming that if you're asexual, you can't enjoy or have no interest in a romantic relationship. Lecture time here right now. They are not the same thing. There is being aromantic and there's being asexual. There are a lot of people who are both, but you know, it's squares and rectangles, or not even that. It's like squares and circles, basically. It's like aromantics simply not interested in romantic relationships. Asexuals not interested in sexual relationships. So you can get aromantic blank sexuals, like people who are aromantic but have interest in sexual relationships, just as you can get people like me who are something romantic, and I'm going to leave it nice and vague because that is just what it is, asexual, I don't know, somewhere around there. That's the big assumption, is like the two go hand in hand, whereas like they can but they don't always. And the other one, the one that just strikes me personally because like it means I'm missing out on so many opportunities, is the idea that every asexual person is touch averse and doesn't like physical affection or anything like that. Not true. A lot of people are. Like, my friend Matilda.
You're the best hugger that I know.
Yeah, oh, there we go. See, thank you. I love hugs, I love kisses, I love all that sort of stuff. It's great. The thing is, it doesn't intrinsically mean I have to want to have sex with someone following that stuff. Like, they're not, those two aren't intrinsically tied, and it doesn't really bother me, but it's like, come on. Some people have such an intrinsic belief that sex is such a requirement to be happy, or a requirement to, love someone or whatever, and Yeah, that's just an unusual thing, and it does make me quite sad when I see the queer community calling that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised by a lot of straight people who aren't familiar with the concept, like, saying ignorant things, but then when the queer community does it, like I've seen them do with bisexuals and pansexuals often, it sort of makes you think, like, have you not considered the similarities between the struggles that this group and your own group might have suffered before? So I can understand vaguely where they're coming from, that they think it's cis-hets wanting to invade the community, but they do seem to fail to understand that while ace people don't always suffer the same injustices or difficulties as other queer people, there are a lot of them out there. I think the biggest phrase I hear all the time is like, asexuals are unoppressed, and it's like, personally, I have not experienced any significant situations where I have to deal with any like negativity solely based on my sexuality, which is good, but that does not speak for everyone, and like you said, it's not one universal experience that everyone has. Like, they have the whole idea of everything has to be categorized. It's basically what straight people do to queer people as well. It's sort of just a whole, like, you know, you have to have very particular identity, like, boom, it's like gay, lesbian, transgender, like, bam, 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 like, without considering the spectrum of the situation, which is why asexuality is such a mess half the time, is because it's just like, well, you could be like, if we go with a somewhat flawed but best metaphor I can call to mind, the Kinsey triangle, where you've got like the whole homosexuality, heterosexuality, asexuality. Basically, you've got this top line is allosexuality, and everything down there is somewhere on the spectrum of being ace. Like, it leans more towards allo, obviously, the higher it gets, but there's just this big grey area, and trying to categorize everything there is not going to happen, not easily anyway. Yeah. Like, I think half the time I've just said, if you want to get my sexual identity, just put a Kinsey triangle up on the wall and throw a dart at it, and it's like, there we go. So long as it doesn't hit the top line, then we're in business. So, yeah. The idea of it being a phase, who knows, maybe it is, but that's one of the wonders of being a human being, is that you're constantly changing, you're constantly learning new things, you're constantly developing how you view and identify yourself. So who cares if it's a phase? This is how I am at the moment, and I feel like that deserves a little bit of respect. It's aces. Cool. Woo-hoo! Yeah.
High five.
Oh, there we go. Did it.